Sally, I think you're on to open
Okay.
the evening.
Okay.
Sally wrote the foreword to the book.
I wrote the foreword to the book and was really honored and pleased to be asked because Connie and Andrew have done brilliant navigation, linking quantum science, what I call original knowledge of indigenous and the ancients, and current events, and how this all integrates into the reality, the collective reality that we have subscribed to by consensus. Connie and I have known each other for
20 years.
20 years. And we, in the early years, we had a lot of time together, and she was on her journey to the center of reality, while I was out there working on environmentalism and all these different issues and passions that were mentioned, and most recently climate change. And every time we got back together, it was like we had had a cup of coffee the day before, and we just kind of pick up, and we were in common cause, always in common cause. What was the true nature of reality, and where is and what is the real evolution of human consciousness? And year after year, I would ask Connie, and then of course Andrew, I would keep asking, okay, how do we apply this to real life? I mean, is this an esoteric exercise, an intellectual exercise? How do we really apply this to real life? Where does the rubber hit the road? And the reason I was asking that is because in my work, I have been down in the trenches in citizen activism, and I have been at the highest levels in the halls of power. So there's there's a dichotomy, yes, but there's also a huge span between the realities that are held at each end, and how do you migrate? How do you become a wizard in communicating and recognizing these realities? How do they all integrate? So when she asked me to write the foreword, and I had been asking this question about where does the rubber hit the road, I'm now working deeply on climate change in many different ways. And I thought, okay, so climate change is an invitation, actually, for humanity to collaborate at a very high level in order to sustain this planet as a living planet. That is where we are now. The question that I had been asking for a long time was, why? What's the root cause, particularly now, when we have scientific evidence, we have extreme weather events, frequent weather events all around the world. We have food scarcity becoming more and more acute because of droughts and floods. And yet, we continue to do what we are doing to literally ourselves. It's about saving ourselves from ourselves. So what is that root cause that we would continue on this trajectory? And in my work, I always wanted to go where Connie was going, is what is our true nature, and what are we not recognizing in our true nature that is not allowing us to be in a place where we would choose through free will a different reality, a different outcome. And so I'm going to read a couple paragraphs in the foreword because I had time to think about it, and it's better articulated than what I can do at the moment. But But in this inquiry, what I recognized is this is a very courageous work that these two have done. You know, as was mentioned in the introduction, this is a lifetime of exploration and inquiry and into this question. And the book, you know, when I was asking these questions, separate from but also with Connie, is why are we doing this and what is the root cause? Well, it goes down deep into separation, in that not recognizing the true oneness of everything, that everything is conscious, animate and inanimate, and the oneness is unimpeachable and uncorruptible. It is what it is the all that is. In coming into the human form, my own philosophy is, which is not articulated, I don't think, in the book the way I'm going to say it, is that fear and guilt and blame and scarcity thoughts, I believe, come from the birth process, because that's when we separate from the oneness that we were in, the original place that we were in. And then when we come through, I think that's why every human being on the planet has some fear. And there's also some forgetfulness. I remember my goddaughter was 5 years old, and we were on a camping trip, and we were hiking in the Flat Tops Wilderness. And we went out on this promontory, and we were sitting on this rock, and we just walked through this beautiful grove of aspen. And we were watching the clouds. The wind was powerful above, not where we were sitting. It was very still. And she looked at the clouds, and she said, "You know what? I'm forgetting God. And it's scary." 5 years old.
Wow.
5 years old.
Could you repeat that, please?
Uh-huh. She said, "I am forgetting God, and it's scary." And I think that that's the process that a lot of us go through. And so our assumptions, which is where Connie and Andrew take us in this book, are assumptions which underpin our belief systems, which manifest in our behavior, in our choices, in our politics, in, you know, our relationships, in our family, in everything. If the assumptions are based on that fear and guilt and scarcity, then our thoughts, conscious or unconscious, are going to manifest that what's in the interior of our conscious in the exterior. And so we manifest what the world is at this moment. And we have chosen, now this is a juxtaposition, and I don't want to take too much more time here.
No, that's fine.
We have chosen on mostly an unconscious level. One of the teachers that I follow in India says there are two states. There are only two states. One is suffering, not suffering. The other one is awareness, not aware. That's it. She says, that's it. So if we're not aware of these assumptions that are based on what I was describing, then they are erroneous, and they create a reality that reflects that. Where Connie and Andrew take us in this book is that if we base our assumptions, if we shift our assumptions, which are the basis for the belief systems and behavior and, you know, everything else, then we shift what manifests. We shift our choices. We shift the reality. If Buckminster Fuller, whom I had an opportunity to work with, and I know most of you know who he was, he would say, in shifting a paradigm, you don't try to fix the existing paradigm. You make the existing paradigm obsolete. So in reading these 10 assumptions that we have been operating from, and the 10 new assumptions that have been put forward by the authors, you can see very clearly, and they very gently offer this. It's not like lecturing, it's not like beating you over the head with it. They very gently offer this and then show you how that can actually manifest. Climate change is I think, our pivotal choice point on the planet at this moment in time. It's our clarion call to the evolution of our consciousness. And the reason is that because no person, no human system, no natural system will escape the impacts. We are headed right now, we are headed for a 4 degrees Celsius increase in global climate temperature. That is 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit. So look at it this way. If you had a child and a doctor said, you know, your child's headed for 7.2 degrees rise in temperature, what would you do? You would find out, how do you prevent that? And was there something that you could have done as a preventive measure? So what we can do in, you know, we all talked about shifting a paradigm, but how many handbooks are there out there on how you really shift a paradigm? You know, Bucky Fuller's about the only other one, but he didn't get into the 1, 2, 3s. These guys get into the 1, 2, 3s, up to 10. So it's very exciting. So I would encourage you to buy this book. They talk about the trust frequency, which is a higher frequency, a higher consciousness, and we need that higher collaboration on the planet, which climate change is inviting. And I think that we are on the edge of actually the greatest story ever told. And that is humanity actually leaping in consciousness and saving ourselves and recognizing the planet as a sentient being along with us, that we are all one, and that we are at the moment of choice and free will. So I want to read just one paragraph from the introduction that I wrote to just conclude here. Just a second, I'm sorry. There's so much good stuff in here, I can't find it.
This is good.
Okay, so I was talking about where does the rubber hit the road, and as I went through this process myself about root cause, we have put extraordinary effort into protecting the environment, raising awareness, moving into a new economy, which is a sustainability-based economy, trying to move in that direction, and we've actually lost ground overall. So in asking that question, so when climate change came on the scene, that really complicated things, and so there's a big if. We still have time to avert the worst impacts. If, and this is a big if. An even more formidable question is, why are we continuing to doing to ourselves and our children, now that we know what we are doing and understand the consequences of our action? If the capital if means doing all the things we are now striving towards, limiting emissions, getting international treaties in place, push for aggressive political and economic solutions, and much more. But that is not enough. At the end of the day, These measures will not accomplish what is needed. What is essentially saving, we are essentially trying to save ourselves from ourselves and keep our one and only home planet livable. So I introduce these two. Connie has been, as I said, on her journey to reality. She has spent a great deal of time in Native American and indigenous cultures and learning about their perspective and actually living a lot of their perspective, and has written a great deal, has a lot of articulations around that. She met Andrew, her life partner, at the Omega Institute, and what he brought to her inquiries was quantum science, a deep knowledge of a worldwide perspective, if you will, of many religions around the world, and a deep, decades-long spiritual practice. So when they met and combined efforts, it was mercurial. And over the last many years, this is what has been produced by their union. So, Connie and Andrew.
Well, that was brilliantly said. Thank you so much for brilliant articulation and visionary insights into the situation that humanity's facing. And I just want to say that in 1995, you can go on YouTube right now and find Sally and me and Wallace Black Elk and some other ladies on YouTube. And this is, I remember sitting in Grassroots and Sally saying, okay, Connie, how does this apply to the woman in the ghetto who's raising her kids? Okay, so from that day forward, I've made sure that what I do applies, how, that we articulate it in a way that it applies. And in fact, my family, who've been players in the evolution of America, my dad, I just knew that I had to come up with some solutions. I couldn't be busting this thing apart, this thing we call America. I had to come up with, okay, how do we make it work? Okay, and that's what this is all about too. We do a lot of work around America and inspiring America to its highest and best place, because the founders of America had a vision for humanity that we would go to this place. And I believe we're going to do that very soon. So that's my gratitude to you, and a little background of Sally and me. And so how do we want to start? Because Andrew, as Sally said, Andrew brought a tremendous amount of pieces of this puzzle that I've been piecing together here in the Valley. Many of you that are here tonight have been a part of this process as I was bringing Native American elders to the Valley to share their understanding of the nature of the universe. Because what they know and what their experience, these visionary shamanic elders who came into my life, shared a reality that I got it. This is the true nature of the universe. It's not a belief system. These people have two-way conversations with rocks, okay? If they can do it, we can do it. And there's something we don't understand. And so I was developing that, very sort of narrowly in some ways. I mean, it's huge picture thinking, but somewhat narrowly with the Native Americans. And when Andrew came into my life, because he's from South Africa, he's known the Bushmen of the Kalahari for many years, and he's had an extensive experience with various spiritual paths and with the consciousness evolution in the West Coast in the 70s. And he just brought a huge construct to put this understanding of the trust frequency. The Native American, the indigenous cosmology is a trust-based paradigm, okay? It's about sharing. It's not about hoarding. It's about keeping a spin on the frog skins. Give it away, because it's a trust in there'll be more tomorrow, okay? The scarcity fear thing has gotten us hoarding and keeping and saving for a rainy day that puts us in a lower frequency, a lower vibration. So we've distilled some stuff out of our 136 years on planet Earth, Andrew and me, and we've brought it to you in this book, and it is rather unique. It's not a rehash. Somebody called we were on radio a couple of weeks ago in LA, and one of the listeners called it a game changer. Okay, so it may feel like, oh, I've been a seeker forever, and I've had all these experiences, so, here it is, oh yeah, it's a conscious, loving universe. Well, a conscious, loving universe. The scientists are talking about a conscious universe. Nobody's talking about a conscious, loving universe. You hang around with some Native Americans, indigenous peoples, you get it. Everything is love. Everything has a spirit. Everything loves us. So we've just taken it a few steps further and brought you this this paradigm of we have definitions and 10 assumptions, and we'll share a little bit of that with you tonight. And I just wanted to let Andrew have a few words.
All right, I'll see if I can get a word in. Firstly, thank you for coming, showing up. We really appreciate that. We're at Explore Books in Aspen, Colorado. I'm a relative newbie to this town, and I know many of you have been here for maybe all of your lives. It's a beautiful place, really special. Connie just said something, and I'm going to contradict that. She loves being contradicted. She said that science is recognizing consciousness. And I would say that the truth is that only a tiny fraction of the bolder, more speculative quantum physicists even recognize the consciousness, the inherent consciousness in the universe. Science has had a really hard time with consciousness. Science says consciousness, that's for the priests, that's metaphysics, that's not physics. So what this book does, it sort of rides that ridge between physics and metaphysics, between science and spirituality. And it sets out very intentionally to address a situation. I hesitate to call it a problem, but the great yogi, Yogananda, had no problem with the word problem. He said, there are no problems, only opportunities. So as Sally just said, as a species, we are right now confronted with the most challenging opportunity we have ever had put before us. We appear to be changing our planet as a result of our actions as a species. And it's easy to watch certain species in certain small environments bring about radical change. Go down to the Amazon and watch the army ants come through, or in Africa. They come through and they just eat everything before them and there's nothing left. And they just keep on moving and they sort of disappear again, but they come in these waves. We're a little bit like that. Why? Why would we behave like that? Because of our fundamental assumptions. I can summarize everything this book is about. You don't even have to spend the money on it. In 4 words, they were on a bumper sticker inside Connie's van when I met her in the parking lot at Omega Institute. She slid the door of her old Chevy van open, and right there it said, "Trust the loving universe." Trust the loving universe. The situation worldwide with certainly so-called developed nations is that we simply do not trust the loving universe. We don't. Why? We just don't understand it. We don't get it. We don't know that it is conscious, that it's aware, that it loves us. We have all these religions saying God is love, and then behaving the way these religious people tend to behave. It's a very challenging species we are. But we are at the very beginning of a major awakening. We have the potential to become something entirely different. Okay, a different species. Like, how about Homo sapiens? Wow. Anybody not know what sapiens means? It means wise. Okay, can we actually become the wise ones as a species so that anyone else watching from out there goes, wow, those guys are cool. As opposed to, let me out of here. So, so the book sets out to address the specific situation that we humans, this species, is running on an outdated screwed up operating system. Let's just use that metaphor. Your computer is doing all sorts of whacked out things. It's just not doing what it was designed to do. What do? You call up the guy, you say, what do I do? He says, you need the latest operating system. For humans, what's the equivalent to that? What do? You actually have to replace your operating system. What's the operating system? It's our thoughts. It's the set of assumptions, the set of beliefs, the set of opinions, if you will. It's that trivial in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm.
The opinion, for example, we used to think the Russians were really bad, scary people. They were the enemies. Now it's somebody else. We keep changing our minds, so it's like, it's not even deep, you know? We have these opinions, we spend billions of dollars dealing with fearful fantasies, and the planet is going to rack and run. So what's the solution? We've got to individually, personally change. And that's ridiculous. We've got 7 billion of us. How on earth are 7 billion of us how's that going to happen? One at a time. And it's going to catch fire. Because we live in a new era. We, as a species, are in a brand new place for maybe the last 20 or 25 years. We have a whole new thing called the internet, for example. What has happened with human consciousness? It's exploded to where I can email my best friend from South Africa from age 4 years old, who now lives in Sydney, Australia, and who's a PhD, brilliant guy, with a question. I'll have that answer back in 3 minutes. Wow, that's an opportunity. We have the ability to spread ideas, and what we're talking about here is ideas. They're not new ideas, they're ancient ideas. If you go back to the Vedas 5,000 to 6,000 years ago in India, you'll find the identical ideas, the identical understanding of the nature of the universe and humanity's place in it. Go to the Bushmen of the Kalahari, and while you may not have in Southern Africa the world's oldest people, while you remember the gods must be crazy? Anybody not know who the Bushmen are? Right? Those beautiful little people. I've had the amazing privilege to spend quite a lot of time with them, and we don't even have a language in common, really. I speak really bad Afrikaans, and they speak really bad Afrikaans, because their Afrikaans comes from, that's the latest Western language on the planet. It's like 200 years old. It came out of Dutch, and it's mixed with a lot of other things. So the Bushmen speak a sort of 100-year-old Afrikaans, but we sort of communicate, but it's not about verbal communication. It's about a way of being. When you spend time with those people, it's osmosis. It just comes to you, through you. It's a way. And these people are so challenged. They have nothing, and yet they have everything. They have everything you really need. All you have is a loincloth and a little bow with a little gourd, and that doubles as your musical instrument, and to go out and get your dinner. It's amazing. Those people have lived on this planet for several 100,000 years. Don't imagine that they don't know everything about what it is to be human. Then we, Westerners, have a whole other thing to bring. It's not that we're bad, it's just that we're different. We're bringing something different. Each of us brings something, a piece of the puzzle, a facet of the diamond. And if you put all of humanity together and really mobilize our wisdom by changing some very simple beliefs. The first one, what were we told in high school about the physical nature of the universe? It's a machine, right? It's a whole bunch of atoms and quarks and galaxies and things obeying and disobeying certain laws that Newton figured out, and they didn't work when Einstein came along. But nevertheless, it's a machine. What if it's not a machine? It's a machine. It's not alive. It's not conscious. Doesn't even know you exist. And yet you're an inseparable part of it. Wow. What if it's completely alive, completely conscious, completely ever evolving? The whole idea that it's fixed. It's not. How can it be fixed? It started 13-some billion years ago, and it exploded into being, and it's changing all the time, as we're changing all the time. We just have to be sure in certain cases that it's changing in a way that seems intelligent or something. You know, our species may not be permanent. 99% of all species that have ever existed on this planet are long gone. Go dig up some fossils and check them out. They're gone. We may or may not be around in another 100,000 years or another million years. And in the big picture, I don't even think that matters, because it's a conscious, loving universe that it's a self, the universe experiencing us itself, and each of us is a manifestation of the universe experiencing itself. So let's do that right. Let's Andrew be the best Andrew he can possibly be. That's all I can do.
And without shifting our assumptions, we can't go there. Because, and one of the titles of our talk was Healing the Split in the Human Psyche. Okay, so this is a complementary concept to what we're talking about here. Because when Wallace Black Elk said, we are born knowing this much, and we narrow it down to this much, what we can see and hear. So Sally feels we came to the birth canal and picked up that fear. But really, on top of that basic separation is that when we opened our eyes and looked around to figure out how to survive, which is our job to do as a species, every species' job is to survive, we took on the assumptions of our parents, of our schools. We want to be a good boy and girl, we want to succeed, we want to support our children, this is key. So we look around and we figure out how to survive, how to act so that we will fit in, which is contrary to our nature, because the systems we incarnated into are out of balance, because they were based on beliefs of our ancestors who were in fear and doubt. And I actually believe that the earth has been in a field of fear, that the dominant energy on the planet has been fear, and that all cultures, all cosmologies, no matter if you have a trust-based paradigm, I mean, the native people, if you listen very closely, and I was able to do this in my association with them, I heard their true cosmology, their true beliefs, but their behavior hasn't reflected that cosmology. No one's has. You know, we've had a few visionary prophets come and say, look, this is what I can see. This is how I'm living. Our authors, you know, our visionary authors, you know, the great, anybody who's truly achieved the status of greatness has seen this. But we think of it as fantasy. It's impossible. I have to live in the real world. I can't. You know, that's fantasy. So we had to split ourselves in order to survive in this world. So we're walking around with these split personalities. And I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Mask. You know, Jim Carrey. You know, the big question is, well, should I go and put on the mask to meet this woman, or shall I be really me? And this was the whole theme of the film. And what did the answer was, be both. Because and people now, you know, they're trying to say, put your ego away. The ego's bad, you know, and become your higher self. Well, the ego is us, is our personality, is everything we've inherited and brought along through our ancestors, and it's our uniqueness. So take our ego and take it to our heart. Take it to trust a conscious, loving universe, to trust our own inner knowing, and act from that place. So that's what I believe this whole experiment in human development has been about, to bring us to the place where we actually choose out of free will to bring heaven on earth, to come from our hearts and listen to our hearts and step out. And we're giving tools in this book. We're giving tools to do that, because we're giving you a construct of the nature of the universe and our place in it. That each of us incarnated, when we incarnated, we came with a gift. And this is basic to the native philosophy. We came with a gift. So when they raise a child, they look for what's that child? What is that gift of that child? We're not going to impose a gift on that child. We're going to see what that child brought. And also that everything has a purpose. That's essential in the native way of knowing. So if everything has a purpose, if there's only love, which we're proposing that there's only love, then, and each of us came with a gift, then each of us, and also the other part of it is that we each came on our soul's journey to wholeness. We came to grow on this journey to wholeness. So if there's only love, everything has a purpose, we each came with a gift, then these loving energies are here to support us in bringing that gift. It's counting on us. And I believe that the loving energies on the planet are just cooperating with us so that we will get to this place and open our heart, because the love in the human heart is going to transform all of creation. So these conscious loving energies, everything is just showing up to give us what we think is real in this belief system so that we can see through it and see that it doesn't work and see that it doesn't fit us and our true nature. So these loving energies organize themselves to make it look like things are going to hell in a handbasket, to make it look like all these species are going extinct, to make it look like the Celsius is doing whatever it's doing, the degrees are, the degrees are rising, so that we will choose something else. I personally feel that we're in a bubble, an illusory bubble, where these energies are creating this reality to match what we think. And all we have to do is change our mind. As Sally has very courageously stepped forward in this arena of climate change and environmentalism to say, guess what, kids? The only way out is up. That's it. So it's very exciting for us to have her, because she's boots on the ground. She's been working this for decades, taking senators down the rivers so that they'll access their hearts. That's the only thing we can do, is access our hearts and act from that place. Period. So that's my, yeah.
If you think about it this way, we have been taught about survival of the fittest. We've been taught that competition is what creates that paradigm of survival of the fittest. Darwinism, however, has been challenged now, is that it's not competition, it's cooperation. And that is the ultimate impulse of the true nature of the universe. So an example would be that you have a herd of elk and you've got predators. Let's say you have wolves, and the wolves go after the young, and the wolves go after the weak or the sick or the old. So it looks like the competition to survive, or the survival of the fittest, are those that are in the best shape. But actually, the circle of taking and giving is actually cooperation. The wolves are taking the young because often there are too many, and they're taking the old and sick, and they need to go, and there's a perfect balance there between prey and predator. So So we have believed in competition. That is the free market. That is capitalism, which on one level works, but at the consciousness level, at the heart level, it's no longer serving us. It's cooperation. And this is one of the reasons why the invitation of climate change to collaborate at this higher level and around the globe, one brain, one heart, the intuitive and the intellectual knowledge like this. The intuitive is the internal guidance system, and that's what I call the original knowledge that we all have at all moments in time, but it's overburdened with coming into this reality, being separated, and then education and all the rest of it. Wallace Black Elk, whom we both had a phenomenal opportunity to be with, his grandparents hid him from the BIA when they were taking children, Native American children, and putting them in schools, making them speak English, taking them away from their native tongue, their rituals, their ceremonies, etc. And his grandparents hid him. He had no schooling. He was amazing. He could talk about quantum physics. He had access to all information that is accessible to all of us at all moments in time, except for these other things. Think about free will and choice. Humanity, as a friend of mine says, created the nuclear bomb and the Mona Lisa. The split psyche, healing the split psyche. And knowing that in our choices, it's not about denial. It's about liberation. It's about freedom. To really know our true nature and act from that place, which is the heart and the head. So in my work, in the work that I've been doing the last 3 decades, I've always tried to bring that into whatever I was doing. And I'll just share a quick story with you which underscores everything that's been said here tonight. There was a survey of 2,000 CEOs of major environmental organizations, of which I was one of the, surveyees. And there were 20 questions. And the first one was, how many hours do you spend fundraising? How many hours do you spend in administration? How do you manage your staff? Blah, 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 blah. Number 19, do you work from anger or do you work from love? And I told this foundation that was doing this work, I said, I don't care. I already know the answers to all the other questions. I want the results of 19. Guess what it was? 85% were working from anger.
Yeah.
So you wonder why, when you talk about the energies and the consciousness, that there was a backlash to the environmental movement, which was really, the intent was good, the intention was good, but the heart was confused. Disconnect. So when Connie's talking about, working from love, and can I share another story? Because this was a revelation for me, and this was in, I think it was the mid to late 80s, 1990, something like that. I was in the bush in Kenya, very, very far west on the other side of Lake Victoria. Nobody except some Maasai and a couple other tribes, and there were 3 men and myself, and we were in 2 Land Rovers, and these 2 other guys went off in this one direction, and this fellow and I were going in this other direction, and we couldn't really, the Land Rover is noisy and you can't really hear things. And we were on this really awful little 2-track thing, which is exactly what should be there or not even be there at all. And we come around these trees and this kind of oasis place with bushes and a lot of forage onto literally a family of elephants that had been massacred. And it took me a decade before I could tell this story without weeping. Massacred literally minutes before. And the babies screaming, and the matriarch dead, and some not dead, and the tusk cut off. And I mean, it was beyond anything I've ever witnessed or experienced, and I don't want to ever come across that again. But what happened to me at that moment, I thought, if I see these guys and I had a gun, I'd kill them. And then something just switched in me. And I thought, no, all of a sudden, all this love came out of me for the elephants and their situation. And for the people who were in such a state that they had to do that. And what was not in balance that had to happen. So that took me to a place, I mean, I always worked from love, but at that one moment I went deep into hate and anger. And then I popped out of it, and ever since that, in the inquiries, in the work that I've done, that, you know, your intention never changes. But where you come from has to be clean and clear and full of integrity and full of love. And that changes the outcome.
Can I pick up from that?
Yes.
So that's exactly the point. How you respond is so dependent upon your inner belief system, on the way you know things to be. And that's what the trust frequency work entails. Figuring out what it is. We took on these beliefs when we were little children. We inherited them from our parents, who took the same beliefs on from their parents when they were little children. They went deep into our subconscious. We never examined them. You know, when you were told, you know, I was born in England, Coventry, England, the most destroyed city in England in 1943. It was a pile of rubble. I could have come out of that thinking, just as an example, that Germans are the worst examples of human beings ever. And they did some really nasty stuff to justify that belief. And my dad really had that belief very strongly. He got really mad at me when I bought a VW. I went, wait a minute, Dad, what are you thinking? Years later in South Africa, crazy. So these things are deep, and they govern our actions, which are only the outward manifestation of all that stuff that goes on before we take an action. So I want to just put the trust frequency, this concept that we're putting out, into its historical human context. Because it's not new, and yet it's brand new. I think we've got a brand new articulation and a brand new way of getting there that's different from anything I'm aware of. You said Bucky Fuller had something perhaps like that. Wow. She called it the 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. So the Buddhists go on their path in search of something called nirvana. What is nirvana? Sat down with a beautiful Tibetan from Nepal who visited us in Arizona. Said, what is nirvana? He said, it is liberation from fear. See, it's not some pie in the sky thing. It's not some, oh, I'm going to be this enlightened person, and you can see the air under my feet. I'm simply going to become fearless because I know, I trust that whatever it looks like out there, firstly, I'm responsible for it, even though that's hard to accept sometimes. And secondly, I trust that it is right. That there's nothing in the universe that can actually be wrong. That's sort of a mental judgment we've made up. That everything in the universe is, in fact, this whole thing that we call the universe is actually a manifestation of love with a capital L. Not love, oh, you're adorable, what are you doing tonight? Not that kind of love. Or the love I have for my little granddaughter. It's a completely, profoundly unconditional love, and you need to go, I'm not going to get deeply into that. But there's something going on right now in our species. It was predicted by Teilhard de Chardin. Anybody not know who that gentleman was? So he was a Jesuit priest about 100 years ago who he was a visionary. And he painted this picture of something that was going to occur sometime in his future, which is our present, that he called the omega point. Something like a critical mass of consciousness would be reached. And as a species, we would elevate to a new vibratory state, or however you want to express that. Well, now, science looks at that askance. Science doesn't. Every scientist I'm aware of thinks that's except for a very few exceptional people. They think that's ridiculous. And yet they say, but we did that in the past, but we're not going to do it again. We used to be apes and now we're people, right? And now we're people and we're never going to move to a higher. Excuse me? Why? If there was that kind of shift in the past, why shouldn't there not be that shift in the future or right now? People like Barbara Marx Hubbard are talking about this idea now. It's a pretty new idea, I think, of conscious evolution. That we ourselves, our species, is a work in progress. It's not finished. Once we sort of awaken to that fact, we can, and then we use this kind of information to go into ourselves and become a person of a higher vibratory state. And every spiritual practice has been actually dedicated to that, one way or the other. I did a lot of Sufi work, and a lot of those Sufi practices had to do with getting you out of the illusory state into the state of reality. It's the same thing. Every one of the spiritual paths, and they've been co-opted by, you can look at the religions and go, oh, right, but, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's something profound there. Someone like Jesus was an extraordinary way-shower of how we can be, as was Buddha, as was John Lennon. It's not, doesn't have to be thousands of years ago. It can be Connie's 3-year-old granddaughter who I spent time with yesterday, and she's like, wow, I want to be like her. So just in context of what we're calling the trust frequency is that state that has been sought by humans, and the world is filled with seekers. Let's have a world filled with people who have given up seeking. What's the point of spending your whole life seeking? I want to find. I want to be a finder. I want to know that I sought and found, and here I am. We can do that. We actually can do that.
And this trust frequency, Henry David Thoreau said something very key to this whole evolution of these ideas. And I want to tell you that. He said, when one walks confidently in the direction of his dreams, walks confidently in the direction of his dream, acts in trust. He will pass certain boundaries. He will experience a success unexpected in common hours. We can't even imagine what it's like. Okay? The laws that apply to him will be expanded, or new laws will be made in his favor, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. Okay?
Who said that?
Henry David Thoreau, and the conclusion to Walden. It's fairly easy to find. Just go to Walden and it's a conclusion. I learned this at least by my experiment. Okay? So what he's saying and is that when we move into a higher frequency, the laws are different, and we individually can change that.
I'd love to hear you say the David Thoreau.
Say it again?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You say the whole thing without breaking.
Did
Yeah.
you get that
Okay.
from
It's really the
Did you get
essence
that
of the
from-
whole.
No, he got it from his own knowing.
Yeah.
I learned this, so Henry David Thoreau said, I learned this at least by my experiment at Walden Pond. That if one walks confidently in the direction of his dreams, he will pass a certain boundary, he will experience a success unexpected in common hours. The laws that apply to him will be expanded, or new laws will be made in his favor, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. Okay, there's a quote, another quote that's attributed to Goethe that says, and I don't have this one down as thoroughly as I do the thorough one. When one commits, no, but that's just the
I know.
that's just the end of it. It's not
Yeah.
that's not the important part.
Yeah, it is.
When one commits without the chance of turning back, okay? So you have acted in trust, total trust. Providence moves too, okay? It's not Providence moving, it's us moving to a higher frequency. Providence moves too, and you will experience chance meetings, material assistance that no man could have dreamt would have come his way. Okay? It's the same thing. We can't imagine it. So The Secret took us to a level, the movie, The Secret, the book, took us to a level. We now know we have power. Our minds have power. We can get what we want. We can manipulate the unified field. Okay? But what we're bringing to the table is, why would we do that when the universe wants more for us than we can fathom? We can't even imagine what this loving universe wants for us. Because we're here in this lower frequency. We're conditioned in this lower frequency. And we can't imagine what this upper, higher frequency with the different laws looks like, feels like, is all about. So I would never tell the universe what I want. Because I want what the universe wants from me. I want more than I can fathom. So that's a little gift that we're bringing in this book, because everything seems to be stopped at, you know, you can have your dreams, go get them. You know, you can have everything you want. You can have that new Mercedes. You can have whatever you want, okay? But just think of the consequences of it, further enmeshing oneself in this reality. So, and I was going to talk about the 7 A's, but do you want to?
I'd like to do a quick
Maybe
time check. How are we doing time?
Maybe we should stop. Let you guys talk.
We definitely want to have some.
Open till 9 o'clock.
I know, we definitely want to have some Q&A time.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it is flowing beautifully, so if you have
Would-
more to say,
you should
we'd
do
love
the
to hear
7
from you.
A's.
If you're
We'll
very
do the
good.
7 A's and
Because
then,
what on
Just because,
earth
you
is
know,
the
we got
7
2
A's?
weeks
I mean,
to-
really.
You're starting to get weak and tired.
yeah, we have some food and wine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
So we'll do the 7 A's and then we'd love to have you guys contribute anything that,
I want to hear the 7 A's.
okay.
Let
From
me-
your
let-
Just read them
perspective.
though, rather than
Yeah.
paraphrasing, because then we can have some discussion.
Yeah, may I just introduce okay, so this is good. Earlier on I said that science has had a really difficult time with consciousness. Science has thought that consciousness is the realm of metaphysics, of the religions and so on. Go talk to the priests, go talk to the ministers if you want to know anything about consciousness. However, science is now really addressing consciousness. There's a whole new science called noetic science, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, the science of consciousness. Extraordinary work is being done right now, and it's still controversial. It's out there. So we really wanted to address consciousness in this book. But what is consciousness? We went to a conference in LA with about 900 people and significant thinkers up there on the stage, and someone in the audience said, "Excuse me, can you define consciousness?" And they couldn't. They did not come up with a coherent answer to that question of what is consciousness. So go to your dictionary and look for the word consciousness. It's there, and it says awareness. And if you were looking at a pretty cool dictionary, it might say a self-reflective awareness. So consciousness is something that's capable of being aware of itself. And I'm like, okay, that's part of it, but it's one part of it. Note, it begins with the letter A. So we're talking about the 7 A's. So the first A is awareness. Without awareness, you can't have consciousness. But there are 6 other aspects or elements of consciousness. And this is what we're proposing, is that consciousness actually consists of these 7 letters that coincidentally all begin with the letter A.
And these 7 A's determine our frequency and therefore our reality. And those 7 A's are awareness, assumption, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing. Okay, so Jean requested that we do it just straight, 7 A's without discussing and describing and commenting. So we'll do it one more time.
And I've added a accepting.
Okay. Awareness, attention, attitude, alignment, action, allowing.
Allowing being the last one.
All right, and I missed one.
You did.
Huh? Assumption, the first one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So can you see how each of those, like our assumptions determine, we can be aware of something, but what we say, for example, what we think of that, something we're aware of, depends on our assumptions about that thing. What are we going to do about it? Our actions depend on our attitudes and our assumptions, and you see how they all sort of build, and some of them are sort of passive. I'm observing a situation. Some of them are active. I'm making decisions about that situation, for example. So our consciousness adds up to all of those things, the 6 of them, and then finally stepping back and trusting, because the last one is allowing the universe to do its part. Because and that, the way I said that sounds like I think the universe is something outside of myself that then is going to do something. Actually, one of the assumptions is that there is no separation. The whole idea of us all in these separate bodies, on some level, there's no such thing. There's this amazing illusion that is somehow being created, and here we are, these bodies in a room sitting here. Wow. But
yeah. So we'd love to get out some little food and some wine, and we could gather around and have a chat. People could contribute what they, because I know we just happen to have this vision and articulation, but each of you has a piece of this puzzle.
would it make sense just before that to have a very few questions? If anybody has a really well-articulated question that you might ask? Do I hear?
Yeah, let's have a chat before we break focus.
Right.
On the 7 A's of consciousness, which is, I think, a brilliant articulation of some fundamental principles that have, I think, what I would call free choice associated with them. And so, I'm curious about, in the writing of the book, in the experience of the 3 of you, throughout all the travels of your lives thus far, how you have come to begin to connect the 7 A's, the awareness with the assumption, with the allowing, the others that I can't remember right now. But how do you, how do you wrote the book? How do you connect those into a cohesive, unit that then brings us to, I guess, trust frequency based in love?
Yeah, there's actually a short chapter in the book on this specific subject, because it really seemed to be something that needed to be dealt with, to be understood, because it's helpful. So it's really an analytical thing to break the unified idea of consciousness down into its elements, and they turned out to be 7. Jean just said there's another one, acceptance. Okay, so there are many aspects of consciousness. There are probably 100 of them or something.
But I'll tell you what pulls them all together is action. Okay? Because if we don't act from this place, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't shift our frequency. It's actually a physical frequency. Your body has to be in the place where the magic can happen. If your body's someplace out of fear, in a job out of fear, and this, that, other thing out of fear, you're negating your inner knowing and doing this anyway, because you should do it or whatever, and you're not over here where somebody wants to offer you the job you couldn't even imagine you wanted. Oh well. We have the free will to create the yuckiest reality we choose. We also have the free will to have more than we can fathom. Did you want to say something?
Well, for me, the shorthand of this in my own life has been trust. Didn't think about it in the 7 A's. Didn't act out of it in the 7 A's. It was a knowing. Is trust in the process of life. And life is consciousness. And that was my mantra. And I've been there since a very young girl. Why and how, I cannot tell you. But it was just trust in the process of life. Even though things come to you that are extremely painful and extremely difficult for your emotional body and your mental body and even your spiritual body sometimes to get a handle on. But then if you settle into, I trust the process of life, then it starts to shift. And what Thoreau said, I have witnessed in my own life. Abundance, amazing people, amazing opportunities. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I have been so blessed. And I believe that that's because of walking in, I trust in the process of life. And that's it.
And you can summarize that with those 4 words I said earlier: trust the loving universe. And trust in life, it's the same thing. Life,
Same thing.
there can be
Yeah,
no
there's-
mistake.
right.
Yeah.
As a quick follow-up to what Sally just said, so I have a comment maybe from the 3 of you, starting with Sally. What is the process of life?
The process of life is, let me think about this for a minute for a clear articulation, that whatever happens to me, whatever comes my way, if I lose a leg, if I lose an eye, if I lose a partner, if whatever comes to me is within consciousness experiencing itself. And I trust that because behind the thoughts, behind the 7 A's, what is before thought? It's love. So in trusting in that, no matter what comes your way, you actually, after you go through the painful process or whatever it is, you come back to love. There's no other place to go.
There is only love.
There is no other place to go. You know, that you can objectify, your mind can objectify, and you can create all these other things, but there really is no other place to go but love.
And what we're saying in the book is there is only love. And why we don't understand, why we see certain things as not love, it's because we don't understand the nature of that love. Okay? It's unconditional love, which means its nature is that it must give you everything you ask for. It loves you so much. You are so desperately loved. We're each so desperately loved by this conscious creation that we're given everything we ask for. And we believe, we're proposing that these 7 A's are our requests. to the universe. And they're actually also determine our vibration, determine which frequency we're inhabiting, and what rules apply to us, and what our reality is. So it's sort of a double way of expressing it.
I noticed that being older, I seem to be aware of things just popping up. You know, I might have, well, I don't know if I necessarily thought of something, but I might be thinking of like detoxing or something like that. I was at the library and here's this book on the counter.
Beautiful.
It said clean. You know, and I thought, well, I wonder what's in that book. And I kind of thumbed through it, and then I let it go. And then the next thing that happened, Dr. Oz had the guy on that did the book. And so I thought, well, I think this is a message.
There
Might
you
be a
go.
message there.
There you go. The
I
trusting
never
the
would've-
process.
Yeah, I
Chip.
never would have thought that before. But
That's
now
her story.
that's happening more often.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's because because I believe the earth is moved into a field of love. Okay? So this dominant energy that was fear that affected everyone, absolutely everyone, and determined our behavior. The earth, I believe it at the harmonic convergence, it moved into this field. It started moving into this field. So the dominant energy has shifted and is love and the synchronicities. And so as we start to feel this, we thought, whoa. And our heart starts to open, our armored heart, because it wasn't safe. So our heart was armored. And even now, I feel like when we present this stuff, people say, no, my heart's safe. Don't talk to me about this. I've been screaming this stuff from the rooftops for 20 years. Don't talk to me. They cross the street when they see me coming. They wave from the other side. They say, hey, Connie, love ya. Ciao. But our hearts are safe. They're barricaded. But now, as this energy starts to show these synchronicities, and the toast starts landing butter side up instead of butter side down. You know, Murphy's Law. But also understand that in this time of cleansing, the Hopis call it the great purification. Okay, in this time of cleansing, we are being cleansed if we give permission, because it's all free will. And the fact that you're here, you know, you're giving permission for something else. It's not an easy ride. Getting cleansed of cellular fear. Okay, so we're not promising you a rose garden, because it's a wild ride, and probably most of you in this room have been on a wild ride.
A thorny rose garden.
A thorny rose garden, because we are asking to be cleansed, to walk into this higher frequency. We have to get rid of all that cellular memory of fear.
So the process for the final, because there's three of us, and you asked actually for three answers.
Right.
So the process of life, from my perspective, is a remembering, putting back the parts, reconstructing it, remembering, is about coming to awareness. It's about letting go of the fearful beliefs that we were taught as little people. It's about walking through this world in a state of trust. And that's the same thing as walking through this world in a higher state of consciousness. Anybody old enough here to remember the 60s? I think so. Remember the good vibes and the bad vibes, right? It's that. It's exactly that. It's not necessarily that you can measure and then we're on some kind of frequency thing and you can look at this little readout. It's that we are in a higher vibe. We're in a state of trust, which is identical to being in a state of love. So our process is to realize that we're madly in love. There's no other place to be other than in love. It's another way of expressing what Sally just said. There's no other place. The universe is love and you can't leave, so here we are. Might as well take it.
And Wallace Black Elk said, man, see, I knew there was something coming on this planet that's never been on the planet. And after a sweat lodge one night, he said, man has doubted the Creator since the beginning. And that doubt has plagued him. It was in that moment that I knew what was coming on this planet. It's never been here. Trust.
Do you think that this fear that you say we've been in, that shifted, has been enveloping this local part of the universe from the beginning? Or is it just this last age, or do you have any theories about that?
Well, since he said since the beginning, and I think he could see the beginning, you know, I don't know. That's my own theory.
We could spend a week-long seminar talking about that very thing. I know it's just so interesting.
Sounds like grandfather said. That kind of indicates to me that it's been that way up until now.
Mhm.
That's what I think.
Yeah, as long as we can remember. Any
Well,
other?
but
Yes.
Hopi,
Hang on, Jean. There's one right behind you, and then Jean.
I just wanted to reaffirm with what you were saying since you're from South Africa, and Nelson Mandela's 94th inaugural speech was one of the most powerful things I'd ever read, and I just recently rediscovered it, and I've been sending it to friends, and it's exactly all about this, and I thought you could, being from South Africa, so appreciated it. Of course, look at the path he walked to get to his enlightenment, where he said, no, we are to be all of that light and love. Who are we not to be? That's who we were born to be.
Mhm.
And if we deny it because of small minds around you inhibiting the light that you're supposed to shine, he said, then you're inhibiting the whole thing. You have to be that. And it was just, you know,
Right.
I just had to
We
mention
we
that
end the
because
book. We end the book with that very statement.
Mhm.
That very last statement in the book,
See?
and it's actually a restatement of something Marion Williamson said.
Yes.
Right.
It's actually Marion Williamson, and then Mandela used it, and
Made it famous.
now we've used it,
Mhm.
and that's actually encapsulates again. You can open this book anywhere, and it will
Mhm.
hit you right in the heart.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I also live in New York near the Connecticut border, near Newtown, Sandy Hook. And I was part of that.
Mm.
And I will just tell you, the universe has cracked open with love and forgiveness and such a high vibration. There's people coming from all over the world that are just attracted to that level of love and forgiveness that went out from those parents and that whole community when they lost those beautiful little angels. They were all 6 years old. And it's just wonderful because they're bringing in some of the teachings of Barbara Marx. I'm just, all of these energies from everywhere
Mhm.
are coming, and it's beautiful
Yeah.
to watch it develop and reflect out. Whether they're bicycle tour to the White House on the gun control, they're just saying,
Yeah.
we're gonna make a
Yep.
stand on this no matter what, but stay at that high vibration. And you go there and it's just amazing.
Thank you.
I believe that's
Thank
what
you.
9/11 was. I have a
Yeah.
whole theory on 9/11, that it was about the opening of the human heart and the rebirth of America. First we had to go through the fear. Anyway, Jean, what were you going to say?
Opie.
well, it relates to a lot of what has been commented on, the separation concept. And to me, there's no mistake that you've used Kokopelli as your symbol on the front cover, because the Hopi prophecy and its short version, as I understand it, is that there was a time when two-legged men, women, the two-legged of all the beings, the creatures on the earth, separated, went a separate path. And in doing that, lost harmony with an understanding and appreciation for all that creation was. And that the sentient beings that we are, but also the four-legged, the one-legged, the water people, the winged ones, the rock sisters, all those sentient beings are still on the path of harmony. And that it is the two-legged that went up. I watched Thomas Benyonica give this presentation many times, that went up this other path and lost their way, and that there is a time and place, because the prophecy talks about this, that we have an opportunity to come back to harmony. And see, this is like breakdown, breakthrough time now. This Celsius change in our environment, and I think the thing that'll bring us back is love, but in a higher vibrational level, and trusting that it is all good, that all is good. But it's in going to the 7, or as I have made it for myself, 8 days. To me, it's the action that I have to be careful of, because I have to make sure it's fueled by correct attitude, correct assumptions, correct alignment. All of that has to be really clear and really in harmony to come from there before I take any action. And
that's exactly what
absolutely.
Sally said
and
earlier.
that's-
Sally's talking about this extremely high level of human collaboration that it's going to take. This is going to be very interesting to watch the next 20 years approximately of the fundamental changes that have to happen within the human beings who have created something, who can now recreate it.
And the action can be a silent action. It can be prayer, thought, meditation, action, as opposed to going out to an activity, which I was pretty regularly participating in, activist activities in the community. Then I stepped back to say, there's another way to do that same activity at a higher vibrational level, and that's where I want to be, as opposed to standing there with a sign that says, know this or know that, or you know, stop polluting the water. I can pray about that and do something, I think, more effective through prayer, thought, meditation to take the action. So that could be my action.
Yeah, absolutely. And just raising the consciousness, like what's his name, Buckminster Fuller said, changing
Right,
what is
right.
isn't going to do it, because it's in this frequency. The
Yeah.
laws
Right.
in this frequency are immutable in this frequency, but only here. You go to a higher frequency, the whole ball game changes.
And I still get caught up as a human in this small-minded, small self, egotistical state, wanting to control the outcome of things and jump into anger, reaction and anger, frustration. I have to soon forgive myself for that, accept that of myself, and say, okay, I'm allowing the loving universe to support me, and I'm going to go to these other thoughts. I'm going to go to this other place. But it's it's conscious all the time. It's a conscious process of
Yeah.
reminding myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's also that split, because we've been trained this, and if you want to show up here and be successful and be loved and be a good girl and be a good boy and all that, if you're starting to listen to this beat, you walk to the beat of a different drummer,
Wow.
and
It's not easy.
it's not easy.
No.
And it's all about the difference between fear and trust.
Yeah.
So all of these things that we respond in anger because there's something still in there. We're not fully cleansed. You wouldn't
Well, it's
expect the
cellular, I
Dalai
would tell
Lama
you.
to
It is,
respond
it
in
is.
anger to the same thing. It just there's
Part
a
of that same purification
there's a different way.
process.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to detoxify not just our body, our mind, our spirit,
And ourselves.
but
it's amazing.
collectively then if we're doing that on an individual level, we're really doing it for the Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Because
Well, for all of
that's
creation,
where we join the harmony
it affects-
that's happening.
yeah. It affects all of creation.
But each of us has to make the free will decision to do that ourselves.
Right.
I can't tell you to do it. You can't tell me to do it. We can't point to them out there and tell them to do it. It's me. I'm responsible.
But that is, to me, so profound, and I don't know that people that I've talked with understand that by doing that for myself, I'm doing it for everyone. I'm making those choices to make those changes, and it has an impact. a huge impact.
Yeah, well, Wallace, we keep quoting Wallace.
Because it is all
But
one.
he always said that your thoughts go around the planet.
Yeah.
You see? I mean, it's fascinating because I hung around this guy for 15 years and I listened and I got it. And in fact, one part of the story that Sally left out was when his family hid him from the BIA, they put him out in the fields and the grasses.
Yeah.
And the grasses became his
Protected.
teachers.
They were his
Okay.
teachers. They
They were
spoke
his
them.
teachers.
Mhm. More than protecting.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the rocks and the grasses and everything started to teach
And he
him.
he could communicate with the animals.
When
No.
Wallace died, who took over in his lineage?
Well,
'Cause that's
his,
a big question.
yeah, no, his family, his daughter, yeah, he's got some wise daughters, but
And it doesn't work like that, though.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
a hand-me-down spiritual path.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
it
It's
can
like you have these.
Because I've met some people who said they took over, but they didn't.
Yeah.
yeah,
He
no, he was a unique.
he was extraordinary. Yeah, he
Did
was.
you guys go to his funeral?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
No,
Was it in South Dakota?
No, it was in Denver. His family actually gifted me with a shawl.
Wow.
So, I guess we should call it a
Let's
night.
party.
Let's party, but I want to just tell you one other thing about, because Sally was talking about the cooperation, okay? All right, a friend of mine who's a Pueblo Indian has a cassette, it's not even on DVD, CD, but it's called Hunter's Heart, and he tells the story of how the native people, in their essence, they don't hunt like this anymore, but in their essence, in their true way, would hold, when it's time for the hunt, when the family's hungry and it's time for the hunt, you do a ceremony, you speak to the elk nation or the antelope nation or whoever that's in your environment that you need food from, and you ask permission and you say, my family's hungry, I'm coming out to hunt, and that communicates with the elk nation, who then decides who is going to come home with that hunter. Okay? And then he says, the hunter then becomes the hunted by that animal who has chosen to come home with that man and feed his family and use his skin for their drums and the bones for their tools. You know, this is a life-giving process. This isn't dead meat. This is a life-giving cooperative process. And in fact, you don't have to be Native American to do it, because a friend of mine here who was gathered with us with Wallace and everything, she and her husband went out just up here in Colorado and did that. And they were told where that animal was. And they went out, and when she said when her husband shot that animal, she could feel their spirits coming together. And this is a white girl. Okay, this is not the domain of the Native Americans. Okay, this connection. We all can do it. We all have that ability. Just that was their job, to keep that connection for all of us, so we could see it and understand it and know that it's possible.
And I just want to add one thing here, is that, Connie was talking about the split psyche. And in our culture particularly, we have been taught that giving and receiving, or taking and receiving, are two different processes. They aren't. It's one continuous circle.
We really
It's a
mess things
whole
up
circle.
when we think it's better to give than receive. Because if there aren't any receivers, how can anybody be giving? How can the abundant universe give to us when we think it's not okay to receive? You have to work hard.
Yeah,
Did
and that's
I
just
interrupt you? I'm sorry.
no, it's just one example of the split psyche. I mean, we could come up with a whole, but it kind of gives you an example of how that works.
Phoenix, did you want to close with something? You look like you have words on your lips.
Oh no, I can just this has been such a stimulating conversation, and you can see I'm sure we could go on for hours.
What
Unless
time
you
is it?
had a little bit more to add, I was just going to bring it to a close unless you had some more. Let the
We
people know
obviously
that
we
they
could go on
have-
for a very long time.
Yeah, that's right. The books There are signed books up at the counter for sale, but if you want some special endorsement in your book, they're happy to do that. And like I say, there's so much, so you can just tell by the conversation and questions that this is stimulated, that there's so much in that book, and I hope that you gift yourself with that. And
Also, there's a film, we've done a film called In Search of the Future, What Do the Wise Ones Know? That features these elders that we've known for 20 to 40 years. And Wallace doesn't happen to be in it because he was on his way out when we were doing it.
He agreed to be
But
in the
he's on
film, and
YouTube.
then he
We've got
passed
lots of
away
Wallace
that
on
year,
YouTube.
yeah. Mhm.
But anyway, we include the film with the book. So,
oh yes, the
Get a free
CD.
copy of the movie and the
Visit.
back of the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
so it's straight from the horse's mouth. Various wise elders, Ralph Abraham, the father of chaos theory, a business futurist, John Ranney out in San Francisco, and the Bushmen of the Kalahari. It opens in the Kalahari with the Bushmen of the Kalahari. So so they're great companion pieces. I mean, you get 2 for 1.
Alright. Well, Connie and brought refreshments, so if you want to stay, we're going to bring that out and some wine. And so thank you all for coming. This has just been so wonderful, and just shine your light and trust. And,
There you
trust
are.
frequency. So let's give our guests a
Thanks for coming, everybody. And thank you, Kimberly, for running the
Oh,
camera.
Yes, thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Kimberly is.
And there's some
Phoenix,
sparkling
thank you for your
cider
loving
as well
support.
as wine, so
And there's not a lot of food, so go lightly.
get online.
Have a conversation, because I'd love to get more from you guys, and not be sitting up here as, authorities. But we are sharing something. We're not sharing as though we're authorities. We're sharing something we see, something we know that's true for us, and so we're here just to share it. So you can.
Well, the wisdom's already there.
Yeah.
It's all there. We
Yeah.
just have to tap into
Yeah, we're just
You're reading
articulating
it.
it in a certain way.
Right.
Mhm.
So thank you,
All right.
Sally,
Thank
for
you.
coming. Yay!
Thank you, everyone, for being here and listening and being part of the conversation. It was really rich. Thank
And
you.
it'll be on YouTube, so you can
Cool.
send your friends to it and do whatever
Yeah.
on the trust frequency